I am Ludveck, Duke of Felleray. I am here in answer to your summons. No matter the might of an army, if the ruler leading it is weak.
Our latest Grand Hero battle unit is Ludveck, one of the main villains in Radiant Dawn for Elincia's part of the game. As Duke of Crimea, Ludveck was not happy with Elincia's new reign, so he tried to lead a rebellion against her. This leads to Elincia having to prove herself worthy as the reigning queen. In Fae, Ludveck will be an Axe Armor unit. It's been about 3 years since the last free-to-play option. For stats, he has 46 HP, 44 attack, 32 speed, 45 defense, and 28 resistance. Ludveck has some fun super boons in attack and defense if you want to push those even further. Generally speaking, we have very few non-5-star Axe Armor units, so Ludveck may be worth a look at. For those of you familiar with Cervantes, who was a heroic Grail Lance Armor with Gen 7 base stat totals, Ludveck is basically built the same, just with higher res in exchange for HP. Ludveck may not have a glorious mustache, but like Cervantes, he brings the Defier's Axe Plus with him. 14 might inherit double axe. At start of combat, if the foe has more than 75% HP, grant +5 defense to unit, inflict -5 defense on the foe. Also, if foe has defense field buffs, grant the same bonus to unit, and inflict penalty on foe's defense equal to the buff. The Defier weapons seem fancy, but aren't that complex. You need to fight a healthy foe, and at base, Ludveck will gain +5 defense while inflicting -5 defense on the foe. That just means more physical tanking and more damage. For the secondary effect, this is Freya's buff stealing mechanic, but for defense only. If the foe has a +6 defense field buff, Defier's Axe inflicts -6 defense on the foe, which basically cancels out the buff in combat. Ludveck will then gain an extra +6 defense in combat, hence he basically has stolen the defense field buff for himself. Not really a standout inheritable axe, but it does play into Ludveck's high attack and defense. For the rest of his base kit, actually okay skills. Ignis to scale off his high defense, and Sturdy Stance 2 adds +4 attack and defense on the enemy phase. These then synergize with Vengeful Fighter 3. Quicker Pose skill with 50% HP threshold, and on hit, you gain +1 special charge. One of the first Armor B skills, Vengeful Fighter, has been power crept extremely hard. It is generally better to run one of the newer Quicker Pose armor skills and pair it with a Breath Sacred Seal. You could even do a Special Fighter with a Quicker Pose seal setup. Needless to say, it only took 6 years for heroic Grail armors to not just get Wary Fighter. I guess we'll take it. With Vengeful Fighter's follow-up attack and extra cooldown, you can proc Ignis in 1 round of combat if the foe doubles Ludveck. This used to be a terrifying combo back in the day, but it's nothing special in the present. The instant slaying Bonfire counterattacks are probably more threatening, since in the same scenario, an army unit can proc Bonfire after every time they get hit. For Ludveck, he has a great base defense to tank physical attacks, but letting foes W is always risky since a special can trigger. We also have a million no follow-up skills, so unless you outspeed, Ludveck won't get to Ignis. Overall, nothing crazy, but for her Grail base kit, honestly better than most. If you plan to merge Ludveck, the neutral nature will get +1 HP, attack and defense. Nothing wrong with that, but if you want to spend trade fruits, those super boons in attack or defense would be fun. Sadly, Ludveck only tops out at 195 BST, so he cannot reach the next scoring tier for Arena even with a super boon. As mentioned, not a lot of free-to-play Axe Armor units. We still only have Sheena as the lone demote option, and her base attack is extremely low by armor standards. For the heroic Grail units, we have Flame Emperor and Halloween Dorcas. Both of them seem to lag behind in defense and res, but they have a good amount of HP over Ludveck. With Dragonflower investment, I think the most obvious observation is that the free-to-play armors don't really get min-maxed. That is definitely on purpose. Low 30 speed is not really doing anything for arm units, but if you want a speed stack, Ludveck is the best of the group. His defense stat is still pretty impressive, but again, Flame Emperor and Dorcas have 6 to 7 extra HP over him. This will also benefit their magical tanking. In fact, Ludveck has the lowest HP out of everyone here, and Sheena can stand her ground with much higher res than the other units as well. Sadly, her base attack is so far behind. While Ludveck can definitely tank some physical attacks, generally speaking his extra points of speed are gonna go to waste unless you fully build into it. You could do some fun things with a certain weapon, but I wouldn't say it's gonna be reliable. Before we move on, since free-to-play armors are so rare, I should note Flame Emperor is about 6 or 7 spots in line for a refine. That's not really super close, but if you're not interested in building an Axe Armor at the moment, but you might be later on, then keep an eye on that. For fun, I just want to show Ludveck versus some 5-star Axe Armors who don't have unique weapons. Besides Winter and Lissa, you can see how Chrom and Dedu are much more min-maxed. Dedu especially has a ton of physical bulk. Moving on to builds and playstyles, Ludveck has a relatively good budget kit for enemy phase baiting. You can stack more attack and defense with things like Odd Defense Wave or another sturdy stance seal. Let physical damage foes come to you, and you whack them with quicker posts while shrugging off their attacks. Like Cervantes, you can decide if you want to stack full defense or mix in some resistance as well. There is also the topic of extra speed, but for budget kits, I really don't think it's worth trying. With some of the recent ephemeras, we got even follow-up 3 from Winter Hilda that gives Omnibreaker on even turns, which isn't bad, but obviously not consistent. Bold Fighter continues to roll in, and there's not really a huge demand for it, but Ludveck can still hurt if a foe isn't prepared. Ideally, you would want extra movement from Arbor March, and you can use mixed phase skills like the ideal skills. Generally speaking, Brett's Sacred Seals grant more cooldown than Vengeful Fighter, but Vengeful Fighter does have the higher HP threshold to use quicker posts. It's not really the best to run both at the same time, but you could solve that with some better skills. That brings us to the premium options, and just like Cervantes, Ludveck would really love the skills from the Halloween Deginsia ephemera last year. He already has Sturdy Stance 2 to upgrade to the tier 3, and you can grab Slick Fighter, which is quicker posts, and you neutralize stat debuffs. If you go over this route, you can then run Steady Breath for better cooldown, and while it's not a huge difference, since we can't instantly charge Bonfire, you can also just run things like Aether. While this is a pretty dang good kit coming from one Ephemeral Common Manual, you will need to get your own near or far save skill. Attack and defense near save can be gotten from Valentine's Lucina. Her rerun, I believe, is coming out the start of March. Now, let's move on to the main attraction for Ludveck, which is the Arcane Downfall. It's a pretty good weapon for army units. If you insert it into the build on the left, no effects will overlap. You will now have accelerated specials, plus 5 to all stats with a stat refine of your choosing, Omnibreaker, you get Guard, Breath type cooldown, debuff neutralization, and 7 HP healing after combat. That's a very nice assortment of skills coming from an ephemeral unit and one rearmed hero. With this weapon, Ludveck can now fire off Bonfire counterattacks, and you can use a stat boosting Sacred Seal. In addition, you can grab distant stance for fun distant counter builds. I would still be wary of Far Save for green armors. A Hero Rises has Dual Crom, Legendary Veronica, and rearmed Ophelia in the Voting Gauntlet. If you do not have defensive specials and Hardy Fighter, it's gonna be tough to tank their assault. Speaking of Hardy Fighter, it's best with the Arcane Downfall, so you can run Pavis or Aegis, and this combo also requires the foe to have offense enough follow-up to double Ludveck. The only thing is that Ludveck doesn't have a built-in follow-up attack of his own. He will have cooldown to recharge the special, but Guard may mess up the loop, and you're really not going to have any kind of kill pressure. Now, let's talk about something more fun, and that is Special Spirit 4. With Arcane Downfall's instant bonfire counters, you can make it so they now pierce damage reduction. A lot of units are relying on damage reduction to survive counterattacks. For example, Jeffrey has 40% DR. If you get rid of that, a souped up bonfire probably kills him real easy. Same thing for units like Brave Erica and many others. Guard will mess up the setup, but it's a very aggressive way to challenge offensive units who rely on damage reduction too much. Another fun topic, speed builds. I'm not going to say it's OP, but Ludveck has the most speed to work with among the free-to-play units, and Arcane Downfall can add +8 speed by itself. You could swap to speed-based stances and save skills, maybe Savvy Fighter, but obviously don't expect to compete with the pure speed Damians. For those without Arcane Downfall, which is understandable, the Seahorse Axe Plus isn't a bad option. That's going to give Ludveck built-in follow-up attacks, which you can then run with Special Fighter. There is also the Stout Axe, which has 50% DR for one hit if you get doubled. Maybe that would work better with the various armor quicker post skills. So, should you 5-star Ludveck? Well, heroic army units are few and far between. If you want high scoring arena units, here you go. In terms of stats, Ludveck focuses on attack and defense and will be weaker to magic while also not having the most useful speed stat. You can build around it, but it's an uphill battle. For his skills, the Fire's Axe Plus is okay, but not really anything special. Vengeful Fighter 3 is here for the first time on a free-to-play unit. If you just want quicker posts, it is strictly better than regular QR on armors. If we get a tier 4 upgrade one day, then Ludveck can provide the first 3 tiers. It's going to need to be a very strong tier 4 to outdo the other options though. Overall, this is our first free-to-play Axe Armor in 3 years, quite some time since Flame Emperor stepped in, and for the most part, Ludveck isn't vastly different from the others. Most of them are focusing on physical matchups. The good thing for Ludveck is that we have an Arcane Axe, and it's very nice for armor units. Slaying with Breath type cooldown is amazing, and it works with just about any armor B skill except maybe Special Fighter. While Hardy Fighter continues to be annoying for survivability, there are many other options for Ludveck. The armor skills lend themselves to many types of builds if you can get them. Free army units are generally always pretty good, so Ludveck will be better off than most heroic crow units without a unique weapon. He's not going to overtake the 5 stars, but if you want to merge him up, then you can do so eventually. That might be good enough reason for people thinking about arena score. That's all I got for this video. Go grab Ludveck for his Grand Hero battle and let me know your thoughts on the dude if you plan to use him. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.